Okay.
Thank you, Paul. Give Paul a big round of Okay, now it's time for our featured speaker. Those of you that have been a part of the GNA for a while know we have a tradition here at the GNA, right? Who knows what our tradition is?
Stand up.
Say that again?
Stand up.
Stand up? What else?
Cheer for our...
Where do we send our featured speaker?
All the way to the
Oh, that's right. All the way in the back. So Rosalinda Zepeda.
I was hoping I didn't have to.
And keep going. Go way outside the door there. Get some fresh air here. So, while Rosie's doing that, I want to let everybody know how I met Rosie Zepeda. Some of you have heard this before. You've heard Rosie speak. And I just thought it was really important how we come out and speak once again at this college event here. But I met Rosie about a year ago. It was at a Cesar Plata event. And when I first met her, her personality was just so charismatic. We just meshed really well, got along really well. I just knew we wanted to get to work together. So we kept that relationship. She kept on coming. She started coming to GNA events and kept on coming. Got to know her, like her, trust her. And now we've been able to create some amazing programs throughout the GNA. So Rosie is the owner of RZ Enterprises. She's also the creator and director of the GNA Women's Mastery. And she's also on the GNA overall executive team. And today, she will be talking about the 5 key points of compelling sales conversations. So you're already ready to your feet. This is awesome. So on that note, please welcome Rosalinda, Rosie Zepeda.
So is everybody comfortable? Yeah. Okay, cool. So I didn't know what the place was going to look like, and I wanted to get I had ordered a slide projector and I didn't get it. So if anyone here wants to get my slides, just send me a Facebook message. I actually don't believe that as a speaker you should, hold on to your information. I believe that you should pass it on, because a lot of the times what we don't have is time. And for those of you who are making presentations to your downlines or in your business, usually the last thing you want to do is the night before create a slide and then get all worked up about it when it could already sort of be in place for you. So I do it kind of very generalized and then you can change it. So how many of you were very impressed when Liz came up here and said, I used to be the queen and now I'm the king? Okay, so that was the result, and I'll be talking about that. That was a result of Liz basically having an aha moment of how she was showing up before. She was showing up in a very different space. Today I'm going to talk about the 5 key points of a compelling sales conversation. And I am known, I'm Rosie the Closer. And how many of you, when I say Rosie the Closer, how many of you does that attract your attention or go, what is she about? Okay? So I'm going to touch a little bit about that. By the end of the meeting, I want all of you to start thinking how you can show up differently in your sales conversations. And just by something that's very unique to you, that all you're going to do is tweak. So I'm an author, speaker. I'm working on a book which is called Compelling Sales Conversation that will be coming out next year. And I'm a master key performance and sales coach. I concentrate, and it doesn't mean that I don't work with men, but my market is women entrepreneurs and women executives. But I have I have male clients as well. But it's all about synergy. We'll be talking about that. So let's move on to you guys learning something today. So this is what we're going to cover. We're going to debunk the sales myth. Okay? How many of you have a business? Raise your hand. How many of you realize you have to sell in order to make money? Okay. How many people here hate selling? Okay, many of you. So we're going to be talking about that and how to make it easier. We'll also cover how to stand out from the crowd, which I touched on a little bit. How to go from salesy to compelling, because there's a huge difference when you're salesy and when you're compelling. And that's a space that I operate in. How to generate instant client attraction. so that people actually want to work with you and are interested in you as opposed to you trying to track your clients down. And I'm going to be sharing with you my #1 secret for compelling selling, because it's something that you're probably not doing that you can automatically do by the end of the meeting. And I'm also just briefly going to cover some of the key questions to doing an effective one-on-one. I study people a lot. I observe what they say. I observe what they do and their actions. And a lot of people have the best intentions when they do one-on-ones, but there is something also that you can tweak with the one-on-one so that you can feel like you're not just using up a lot of time and really not moving forward with your sales. Okay. So will it be okay with you guys if I shared a little bit about myself?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. So I've been closing the sales relationship since I was 9 years old. I started working at the flea market with my father. How many of you guys know the San Jose Berryessa flea market? Okay, that was me. And so my father was my first teacher in relationship selling and what I call compelling selling. So many of you might think, oh, well, she's a natural. Well, that's actually not true. A lot of it really just takes practice. And for me, it was that I was putting into a situation that had to be compelling enough, which means we had to get food on the table. That's pretty compelling. You know? That's very, very, very compelling. My mom was pregnant at the time. She wasn't working. And so it was very, I didn't have a choice. I had to go out there and make sales. I did corporate sales, and I want to share something with you. My biggest sale for the corporate world was $24 million.
Wow.
Okay. It took me a year to close that sale, but let me tell you, I didn't do it by following what I call the testosterone, and no offense to the men, the corporate America teaches you to sell a certain way, which is boom, boom, bang, shoot them, and track them down, and okay. So that never resonated with me, and so what really always resonated with me was what I used to use, which I'll talk to you guys about that at the end of my presentation. And I always use my intuition, and I always use my intuition in terms of connecting with people, because again, I have been doing that since I was younger. Now, when that deal closed, it wasn't like a sign of relief, but it was really an affirmation, and this is something that I want to share with you guys. A lot of the times, many of you get stuck at the number. Just remember that 24 million just has 4 zeros at the end. If you take the zeros, it's $24. Okay? So I'll be touching a little bit on how, when debunking the myth, how many of you are really not facing your fears, when really you should be facing your fears and making your offer and your best offer to really get it. Okay? Then I got sick, and I had a tumor in my adrenal gland, and I almost died, so I was kind of forced out of the corporate world. But now I'm very happy to be here, sharing my gift with you guys, and by the end of the presentation, empowering you guys to get some knowledge and go out and make more sales. So I came up with what's called the intuitive selling method, which is really my own unique way. So there's what I call testosterone-driven sales method, and then there's the other group of people that say, oh, wait a minute, it's not sales. We don't do sales. You're selling. Okay? So I believe in every conversation in your relationships, at the restaurant, when you say, I want this, but I want dressing on the side, you're selling. Okay? So we need to own it. And so I get frustrated when I hear people and they go, oh, well, I'm not really selling. Well, if you're not really selling, you're sending the message to the universe that you don't want it. Okay? It just means that you just have to learn how to do it in your own way. So that's my story. Let's go over the myth and stereotypes of being in sales or of a salesperson. So what are some of the myths or stereotypes that people have? Give me some stereotypes about salespeople.
Pushy. Pushy.
Pushy. Okay, what else? Just spell them out.
Aggressive.
Huh?
Aggressive.
Aggressive. What else? Selfish. Okay, one more.
Talk too much.
Huh? Talks too much. Okay.
Annoying.
So some of the myths is that you have to be born a salesperson. It's actually not true. And I'll give you another story. My little sister lived with me in New York, and she was an artist at the time. And she wanted to come back. But, in California you need a car. In New York you don't. And so I was working in corporate at the time. And I said, well, I think you should go into sales because if you want to be an artist, you're going to have to sell yourself. And she just kind of didn't know how to make the connection. So then she's like, no, well, that's you and that's me. Well, I can tell you that her first year, she actually made more money than I did my first year. And she was this very shy, artistic type, but she was able to really find her own truth and talk her own, her own compelling story with her customers. Okay? So for those of you who are sitting in the audience who are thinking, I have a business, I know I need to sell, but I'm feeling kind of weird about it, we're going to be talking about that. Also, that you have to have a certain personality. How many believe that in order to sell, you need to be outgoing? Good. Yeah. Good. Very good. So you guys, I think you guys are already ahead. That you have to look a certain way to sell. Okay. Very good. Salespeople lie and deceive. How many people believe that?
Yes.
Okay.
Certain businesses.
Okay. So let me ask you something. You guys are salespeople because you have a business. Would you say that you lie and you deceive? No. So these are some of those of you who have these roadblocks, this is some of the stuff that you guys need to get over. We'll cover a little bit of that. Let's talk about first how to stand out in the crowd. This is the #1 mistake. Remember, when you're showing up, you are selling. If I'm standing and I haven't said anything to you, I'm already selling. Yes or no?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay? So how you're showing up really matters. And why that matters is because people are going to make assessments about you before you even open your mouth, before you even ask a question. And what I see many people do is they have a business and they hang it up and say, okay, I have a business, but they never really intend and say, I'm really here and I'm really present. They don't really own it. So the first thing you have to do with selling, and a lot of people think, oh, I need to have a lot of self-confidence. No, you don't. You can be yourself. But you really need to set the intention, I have a business, I need to sell, and how am I going to show up, and how do I want people to receive me? Okay? The next thing, before we even go into the first item, is you need to know your client. And I see this a lot. People will know everything about the product, the company, everything they need to know, all the information. And they make assumptions of who their clients are. And that is not a good thing, because you are not in your clients' heads. You need to get to that point, and that's what we're going to cover. But the #1 mistake is for you to say, I know it, and I know what my clients want. Absolutely not. And I'll give you an example of what the new paradigm of selling is. Social media has changed the way that people buy. Before, companies just assumed that they knew what we wanted. And now, companies are paying attention to your likes. They're paying attention to what it is that you gravitate to, who you're friends with. So they're really getting to know what it is about you that ticks in ways that they weren't doing that before. Before a company went out and did market research and said, well, out of 1,000 people, they responded to this, so this is a campaign, let's go out, let's go sell something. That doesn't work. So many of you who are in the corporate world, you have to make that shift over. Okay? And the shift over is not necessarily personalized. Many people believe, oh, I'm just going to customize and personalize it. No. There's a set criteria that you need to know. And knowing your client means, who do you want to play with? Who do you want to do business with? Can we do business with everyone? No. And the entrepreneurs who are going around thinking that their product or company is suited for everybody, I'm telling you right now, you're going to fail, because it's not. It really is not, because there's one of you, there's 24 hours, and there's about 6 to 8 hours to sleep, and then you have families, and then there's the chunk time for your business. And the more focused you are as to who you want to serve, the better it is that then later you can wide open and then attract more people to you. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. So know your clients. Finally, you need to know your beliefs. If you don't know what you stand for, I mean, and then I'll be doing an example of what I call the chit-chat sales conversation, which doesn't work. Oh, you like that? Oh, I like that too. It's like high school, right? So it doesn't matter. And most people agree just to agree, and they don't know what they're agreeing to. And a lot of times when they're talking to someone, remember when, I don't know if you guys read the invitation for this. How many of you have been in a conversation where then you walk away somehow thinking, oh, I really connected with that person. And then you see them, and then it's like, hey, hi. And then it's like, boom, like nothing happened, right? It's kind of like you went on one date, and then we're just like, oh, we're going to have a second date. Well, that's kind of how it feels, and it feels kind of weird. Does it feel kind of icky? Like later when you go, and then you get that guilt. God damn it, I spent an hour talking to that person. That was an hour of my time, and I was late picking up my kids. So we're going to go over how not to get into that, how not to waste your time, okay? So it all starts with your beliefs. If you're talking to someone, and you realize that that person is not in line with who you are as a person, with who you believe, let me tell you right now, if all you're thinking is dollar signs and I still need to charge forward and do a sale with this person, it ends up wrong, there's drama at the end, and your time is wasted. So it's very important that you start out with yourself. Okay, so I'm going to talk number one. This is a number one key of a compelling conversation is branding. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So I don't come up here and say, hi, my name is Rosie Zepeda, and I'm a business coach. How many business coaches are out there? Lots. So I have to stand out, right? And I have to stand out with something that has to do with me, that has to do with my personality, that has to do with who I am, okay? So you have to stand out and make yourself be special. Also, what are you an expert on? And we'll do an exercise to sort of bring that out. But I want to invite Liz now to come up here again. Liz, I want you to share with the group, what were you saying before? Tell us what you were saying before when you were meeting people. Project.
My name's Liz T, and I am a sent-out card marketing distributor, and they have awesome cards. You can purchase them, and they are personal, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, Liz, what kind of results were you getting?
Well, first of all, it looked like their eyes were glazed.
Okay, wait, hold on. Freeze here. When somebody's eyes are glazed, nothing's happening.
You've lost them.
And then they were unable to get into the conversation because they didn't have a very clear understanding of what this program is all about. But they would nod their head.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. Freeze here. Why do people nod their heads? Because they want to agree with you, and they want to be liked. They don't want you to reject them. So naturally, they might not be any interest, and they go, okay, Liz.
And then they would quickly make up some random reason why they had to leave.
Which means? Not interested. Okay, Liz, I know you said it before, but I want you to say it again. This came out of the exercise we did in mastery, and we'll do the extra. You guys are going to do the exercise. So now, say and own who you are, your brand.
My name is Liz, and I used to be the queen in my family. Now I am the king of my family. And how is that? I have a system that keeps me in touch with the people that I love and care about. And I love them.
Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you. So let's have some shares. What do you guys see was different from the way Liz was presenting herself initially to that second one. Yes, and project, because this room's horrible for projection.
It was more authentic in the second one.
More authentic.
You knew who she was and you could identify with her more.
Okay. Christy.
So I saw a bunch of different stuff. So one, there was a certain level of confidence. You knew what you were going to say. You weren't slurring on her words. You made it about you and not about the product. And then there was all this call to action, like, okay, if you're interested, come on down. Come be a part of my world. You know, which was
Sal?
very nice.
It builds curiosity.
Yes.
Yeah, rather than giving all the information out.
Okay, so remember when I said, how many of you have been to events and there's like 7 people? How many of you guys in network marketing? Raise your hand. Raise your hand up high. Don't be shy.
Come on, who's in network marketing here?
For God's sakes. Okay. It's okay. So, how many of you guys have been to a networking event and then you're like, oh, and you go, oh, shit. There's like 6 people here. Damn it. Oh, I'm going to run over there. They're going to get that person. How many of you have felt that way? Oh. Okay? This is the reality. Because when you're operating in a scarcity model and when you're repeating something that you learned by someone else and it's not you, and it's not speaking in your own voice, you go, because now you're thinking, I'm like everybody else. And so-and-so's here from that company, and, well, I really like that person, but okay, I need to talk to that person about this. So you're getting ahead of the game, but when you own it like Liz did, and she knows already, who do I want my client to be? And you know what, to her, she's going to show up, no matter what, like herself, and people are naturally going to be curious to know, wow, I want to get to know that Liz person, okay? So do you guys see how that's, you go from being salesy to being compelling? Being compelling is when people, when you show up authentically, when you show up in such a way that people are just attracted to you. Did she say too much? Was she too wordy? No, she went bang, bang, bang. And this is another thing, you have to do things in threes. The brain cannot handle more than, when you're first meeting someone and you want to stand out, and you go, place, okay? Just remember, when you do the place, don't be charging for it. You be the person who goes, oh, I know it. Okay? You be the person who jets out, because then you're just wasting your time. Okay, number 2, emotional connection. You meet someone, and let's say maybe you show up, Liz shows up really well, but then she forgets that she's in a compelling conversation, and she charges forward. She doesn't sense that person's energy, okay? How many of you here believe that we're all energy? Okay? So, what people do is that they have their business hat on, and then they go, oh, thank God, okay, I presented myself, and that was authentic. And then they forget, and they don't sense where that person is, right? So let me give you an example of where you have to sense and be authentic. So you keep the authenticity and the intuition in, okay? If I'm talking, if I got Dale's attention, and now we need to go to the connection part, but if I'm sensing that there's something off with him, and I keep talking to him, there's going to be no emotional connection with him, you know? But if I sense, and I say, you know what, Dale, are you okay? Or, you know, you have to sense who that person is. And I see this a lot when people do the follow-up, you know, phone conversations. They don't ask for permission. They don't say, you know, is this still a good time for us to do, you know, to talk? Right? You have to give permission to people. Give them permission to be that. And many times you're like, hey, hi, you know, yeah, you know, we scheduled this call, and okay, and then you just charge for it. Oh, and then we're going to talk about this. And then sometimes the person's on the other line, you know, the kid's tugging at them, or like they're watching the dog pee in the carpet. And, you know, they're not going to pay attention to you. But if you give them the permission and you say, Candy, hi, how are you? Most people never say I'm having a bad day. They're going to go, I'm fine, right? And then we'll keep charging forward, right? And then I go, before we move forward, Candy, is this still a good time? I give her permission. And so what happens is, especially when we're at the end of, our sales cycle, and we're just like, yay, this person's gonna sign, I'm so excited. And we don't ask that permission. We sabotage it by simply just not asking that question. Is this still a good time? It doesn't mean that that person won't move forward with you. It means you're giving them permission to say, oh, Rosie, you know what? This is not a good time. And then this is the other mistake people do. Oh, okay, what about Tuesday? Does Tuesday, because they go into fight or flight. And then for those of you out there that are going like, this is da-da-da, and then all the emotional stuff comes in. Oh my God, and I set my day aside, and I was, an hour, right? Okay, so you have to get rid of that, and instead, stop making it about you. Okay, so this is not about you, this is about them. So then you basically say, Candy, what's going on? Is there anything I can assist you with? And she might say, yes or no, and it's okay. But then if she says yes, or if she says no, it doesn't matter. You've just elevated yourself to a higher level, and you keep standing out. Does that make sense to everyone? Of these series of standing out. So then you do want to set up a follow-up, but you don't set it up right away. She might tell you and say, you know what, Rosie, I just burned the casserole. I'm like having a day from hell. You want to talk about it? Well, I don't know, maybe, because they do. Most of the time, and you guys have been here, doesn't it feel good when you just let go of it? And if the other person on the other side is the one hearing you and being of service to you, are you going to be more emotionally attached to them now? Yeah. That's like a whole different thing than this. You say this, and I say this, and I say this, and I say that. If she doesn't want to talk about it, you say that's okay. When would be a better time for me to get back to you? Okay? But this is what most people do. They leave it there. They don't make suggestions. Let me tell you, I have a couple of days set up, or a couple of openings. Will this work for you? If she says no, it doesn't work, then you leave it alone. So what most people do is they just give in, don't do the follow-up when they're going to follow up, or most people just charge too hard. And being in a compelling conversation means you're always connected to what's going on with that person at all times, and you stop making it about you. You put your feelings aside and you stop making it about you. Okay, we're going to do what's called an emotional connection exercise. And so you're going to need a partner. It's going to be one and one. So partners two. This is what you're going to do. We're going to do what's called a stand-out emotional exercise and the listening exercise. So my awesome A's, raise your hands. Awesome A's, raise your hand. Okay. Now who's the awesome A's? My brilliant B's, raise your hands. Yeah, you guys kind of choose. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the B's are going to go first. And the B's, you're going to ask A's this question. And you're not going to interrupt. And A's are going to talk for maybe a minute. And then we're going to switch it. So you are going to ask A's, what is something that you feel very passionate about? Okay? So, go. Yes.
Keep my mouth shut.
Is it hard just to listen?
Yeah.
Yes. Christy.
I wanted to say, oh, nice. Oh,
Okay.
I wanted to.
So the reason,
relate.
yeah. But so you want to relate, but I also want to say you want to get engaged in the chit chat. Okay? And after today, you are not getting engaged in the chit chat. Let me give you an example, and then we'll do a couple more shares. Because when you're like this, and then this is what happens to your face, and then you hear something that you don't want to hear. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You cannot get engaged with the chit chat. But if I'm listening to David, and I could nod or whatever, and I'm listening, and I'll give you, and I'm going to cover why you need to do this, because it's strategic. It has to do with sales, okay? You know, that's the old way when we're mirroring, right? But if I'm not mirroring, then my ears concentrate. If I'm trying to mirror, I'm being too kinesthetic, right? And there's times to do that and there's times not to do that. Okay, another share. Now the share is, how did it feel when you were talking and someone was listening to you? How did that feel? The share. Done. Say it louder.
Awesome.
Why did it feel good? Okay. So, make a note of this. Psychologically, we have a need to feel wanted, needed, loved. The most basic way that we can serve people is to listen to them. Okay? During the day, I can tell you, most people are not heard enough. How many would agree with that?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Amen to that.
Okay? They're not. Most of the time, we're doing this dance. Da-da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. At the end of the day comes and go, that was a long day. Okay? That takes up a lot of energy. And here's another thing. When we're going back and forth with da-da-da, we're taking that energy in. It's exhausting to our bodies to do that. But when we're just present and listening to someone, emotionally, what's going on with that person is going, it's listening to me. This feels great. Do you think that person wants to keep having a relationship with you? Yeah, because it feels great to talk and nobody interrupts you, because everybody always interrupts us, right? Yes.
They'll say you are the most important person
Exactly. Okay. Another share. This share, I want the person who shares to tell me what they learned about the person that they were hearing. This share is, I want you, let's say your partner was David. Tell me something about David that you didn't know, or something that came out of that conversation. Yes, Christy. Gina's daughter wants to go to Harvard.
Wow.
Is that important information in a sales conversation? Hell yeah! Everybody say hell yeah!
Hell yeah!
You know what? And they're friends.
Yeah.
They're friends. And she just learned something. Okay? And you know why that's important? Because Christy can now better serve her. Even if she's not her client, she can better serve her. Because now she knows something. Is she emotionally attached to her daughter now on? Yeah. You know, everybody's kids is like, oh, my child, right? Hold on. Okay, so let's move on. How did that feel for everybody? Okay, good. So, number 3. Let me tell you why you need to listen. You needed to listen because this is about emotionally connecting, okay, which is number 2. But this is about you scanning for information on whether this person is your ideal client. Okay? This is not about you. This is about them. Okay? For many of you who are in wellness, you just assume that everyone needs wellness. Yes or no? That is, everyone should do it. But you need to scan for what they're saying, because maybe they're not your ideal client, maybe the mother is, right? But you're not going to get to your audience unless you listen to what they're saying, okay? So this is what I call you're listening for synchronicity, okay? So everybody say, listening for synchronicity.
Listening for synchronicity.
What does synchronicity mean to those of you who hear that word? What does that mean? Side effect, that's one word. Done? Dance together and sing. Anyone else? Yes?
It's like the sum of the parts is greater than, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Yes! We're getting scientific. Awesome. Yes.
How about harmonizing?
Harmonizing. Remember when I talked about beliefs before you get into the conversation? So you're trying to figure out, does Dale have the same belief system that I do? Because if he does not, and we'll talk about how you deal with that later, if he does not, this is you being strategic for selling. You cannot absolutely do business with someone who is completely not in synchronicity with you. It brings you bad energy, it exhausts you, but when you sense the synchronicity, you're also scanning for information that's letting you know. See, what most people do is they talk about the benefits. My company, and this does this, and the product of this, and your life is going to be great, right? And that doesn't work anymore, people. It just doesn't work. But when you're listening and someone is sharing something the other thing that's happened to the other person when they're sharing is they become vulnerable. When they jump to that vulnerable stage, you have this emotional connection. But for you, the listener, is not automatically is this person my client. What does this person need? What does this person need right now? So here's some key points for listening for synchronicity. Always be present. Always be the giver. Is this my ideal client? Know what you are listening for. If you are sitting in your chair right now and you have a business and you don't know what you're listening for, you don't have a business. You need to know what you're listening for. I'm pretty sure Hugo knows this. He knows what things to listen for people who need the services. Okay? Here's some things to say so that you don't get into the nodding all the time, right? When someone's talking, you can just simply say, and you know, because people, we hit this, and we just kind of go, and then there's like weird there where you go, well, I'm supposed to be listening. What do I say? Well, you just say, you know, that sounds really interesting. Tell me more. I'd really like to learn more. You're giving them permission to be more of themselves to you, to open themselves more. Do we get enough of tell me more during the day? No, we do not. Okay? So, number 4. Number 4 is stay in the needs. Stay in the needs means this. You cannot talk about your product, your service, you. You can show up and be you and get the attention from someone, but for me, I can't talk about how I can coach you and do this and take your business from you. I can't do that unless I stay in the needs. And what does the needs mean? That when people keep talking, they'll tell us what they need, and maybe they don't need what we have to offer to them right in that moment. So if I'm talking to Liz, and I can simply ask her to keep talking, I can say, well, Liz, this is another question. This is a huge nugget. What do you need right now? As a person, your business, what do you need right now? And every person will tell you what they need. And this is why this is important to stay in the needs. If I ask you what you need, and you are so focused on your child going to Harvard, I now need to better serve you by maybe sharing some information or connecting you to someone. Does that make sense? Can I turn to her and go, okay, well, she told me what she needed, but let me just jump over that. You know what? I wanted to talk to you about languages. Do you see the disconnect? So you stay in the needs, because when you stay in the needs, let me tell you what magically happens. When this person just goes, well, I need this and that, all of a sudden, they start looking at you a little bit different. And go, wow. If you can help them, you help them. If you can't, but you stay in the needs because they're telling you what they need. You might not have the answer, but later you can say to them, you know, I thought about that conversation we had, and I think that I might get you what you need. And when I have gotten you what you need, later, I'm going to get what I need, which is a sales conversation. But what I want you to understand is that this is selling. You are selling when you're doing this, okay? So when you stay in the needs, you say, I would like to connect you with. I just thought about something that might help you. Okay? And this is how you know that someone's ready for you to give your benefits of your product or service. Is after they tell you your needs, their needs exactly at that moment. Let's say you're network marketing, and right at that moment that person says, you know, I hate my job, and you know, I've been thinking maybe I want to be an entrepreneur. Tell me more. And I don't go, oh, great. I just go, okay, so we're going to have a half-hour strategy session, and the point of that is for me to know more about you and see if I can best serve you and see if there's synchronicity. And most people don't say, well, but what happens there is that I don't shortchange them, and I don't shortchange myself, and I don't oversell, and there's selling that's happening at an emotional level. Number 5, this is what I call you close the emotional gap. So many people think that when you close a sale, that is when you actually get the sale, and no. You're constantly closing an emotional gap with someone. Before, it used to take maybe a couple of touches to really get people to get to yes. Did people get burned in the recession? Yeah. So now it's kind of doubled. It's kind of like 12. But I will tell you that you can speed that up. The minute that you close the emotional gap with someone, then you kind of skip a bunch of that. Can someone tell me maybe what's one way that you can close the gap emotionally with someone really fast? So this is where you come in. Okay, I'll share that with you. I'm gonna model it. Okay. Yeah. So if we're talking and I'm listening to you, and you know sometimes you get the feeling that maybe you're not connected with someone. You have to, what most people do is they agree. They go, oh yeah, I understand that. No, you don't. You don't understand. Somebody's telling you a story, that's something that's very severe. More than likely, you probably don't understand it. But what most people don't do is that you can turn to someone and say, you know what, Dale? I want to share a story with you. That's how you turn it over back to you. And you share something that's actually genuine and vulnerable with you. 1, people like stories, and 2, people are going to honor you that you're putting yourself out there and you're being vulnerable. I did it when I started the presentation. I asked for permission, can I share something about myself? And I said yes. But I also shared something very vulnerable, which was that I almost died and that I was very sick. And when we do that, we connect to the other human being. Okay? So closing the emotional gap is if there's a needs match, you're going to continue with that conversation, but you're not going to get that customer to be your customer right away, because you need to have a series of compelling conversations to get to that. Okay? But closing the emotional gap is also, if you can't serve them and you get that feeling that there's no synchronicity, you refer them to someone else. And it's okay to say, you know, I would love to serve you, and this is how I can best serve you. I'm going to refer you to a really good friend of mine who can help you in what you need right now. Okay? But you have to use those words. You have to use those vocabulary words, because people are not used to hearing that. And when you're doing that, you're still selling, because now you jump to the high end of the list. Okay? And then I have a motto with this, is you always leave them in a better place than you found them. And this is what I mean, this is client attraction. You know what's going to happen when they get their issue resolved? Because when most people think, they go, oh, God, I scheduled this person's not ready, God, I made a mistake with this person, I wasted my time. And then, instead, if you're in service, that person will call you back. You don't even have to track them down. They're going to call you back and say, oh my God, Sue, I just spoke to your friend, Marilyn. She is so awesome. Okay, opening, Sue can now say, good, I'm so happy to hear that. You know, I would love to continue our conversation. You know, I'd like to get to know you more. Oh, and then maybe now that person will ask Sue, you know, Sue, I actually would like to know more about you, because they got what they needed. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So, I just want to briefly, in closing, touch upon the one-on-one success. How many of you here do one-on-ones? Okay. Let me tell you what I see with one-on-ones. And I heard this. People are like, I am so exhausted of doing one-on-ones. I have so much work to do. I have 5 one-on-ones scheduled. Okay, let me give you a tip. I do what's called the 15-minute compelling one-on-one conversation. And this is why. I don't want to do a one-on-one with you for an hour. It's exhausting, okay? I'm not going to get to know you in an hour. It's just not going to happen. Okay, let's think of dating. We're not going to go from, hello, how are you, my name is so-and-so, to the proposal in that 1 hour. It's not going to happen, okay? But what is a better use of your time is to do 15 to 30 minutes. And you can start by, or you can tell people and say, you know, I'd love to get to know you. I'd like to have a one-on-one. You can use my word, compelling conversation with you. And you know what's going to happen here is we're going to start to get to know each other. Right? Because what happens is many times we're doing things because we have to for our business. And we get exhausted. And you know what? What happens to the brain? It shuts down. By the time you're on your 4th one, you're not listening to that person, and you're not being present with that person, and you're thinking of, God, I'm so tired. Oh, I want to take a nap. Oh, I'm hungry. Oh, I have to pick the kids up. Okay, all of this stuff comes up for you. You're not being authentic. But if you give permission to the other person, and you tell them ahead of time, you know, Dale, I do a series of compelling conversations, which are going to both save us time, and we're going to get to find out more about each other, whether we can be power partners, you know, how we can move our business forward. So if you're doing a 15 or 30-minute compelling conversation with someone, a one-on-one, you don't do the chit-chat. You do not do the chit-chat. What do you like? What do you like? What sport do you like? No. You start with deep, emotional connection questions. If you were to go back, Liz, on your life right now, what is something you would tell your 18-year-old self? Do you see, who doesn't want to be, I want to be 18 again. Who wants to be 18? Raise your hand. So what happens is, you take that person out of the business mind, and wherever they were, and you're, boom, you connect with them. Because maybe they were, you know, not having a good time at 18, that's going to come out. You know what? I hadn't thought about that for a long time. But now that you bring it up, do you see that? And then you just have a conversation for half an hour, you set the time, and you say, I would love to continue this conversation. Thank you. You're done, you move on to the next, and you're not exhausted, you're done. I have clients all over the United States, but a lot of people that I meet on Facebook, I do my compelling conversations over the phone. It's extremely efficient. You just have to be direct with people. Tell them, give them the format. People don't know about it, because if you don't give them the format ahead of time, they think you're wasting their time. So be mindful of, and you be the leader. You be the leader, you be the giver, and say, this is what it is, this is the format. And I think it's a great, and then there's no assumptions, because you're saying, I would like to get to know you. You never say, oh, this is the way that you can get to know me. It's not about you. I'd like to get to know you, know more about you, find out how I can serve you, find out about your business. Everything that comes out of your mouth is about the other person. Nothing is about, maybe we can work together. Okay, no, that's maybe conversation number 5. Okay? Okay? Go back to the dating. In terms of the dating, always think of it. You're like, would I say this in the first date? No, I would not. Okay? So, in closing, I'm Rosie the Closer, and I help women entrepreneurs and women executives close the emotional gap so that they can have peak performance in their sales and peak performance profits. And I'll just share briefly with you, I'm outcome driven. How if you're interested, I welcome you to work with me. I will be starting a group coaching. I'm moving from a one-on-one coaching model to a group coaching model, which is a 4-week fast track to sales success. And I will be starting that in April. I'll be posting the talent class, because I'm a firm believer that you always give something first, and someone should walk away with some valuable information. And then at the end, you make your offer, and if they want to work with you, they'll work with you. And if they don't, it wasn't for you to serve. They weren't the people for you to serve. Okay? So thank you.